on Mr. Cruz, but I want to say something a little more personal first, and that is that when I was elected mayor in the month of May, one of the great congratulatory letters that I got was from Senator Cruz. Second of all, there were a group of us, about 22 of us, that went to Washington, D.C. in April, and we met with Senator Cruz's office, and he spent over an hour with us personally, not his assistants, him personally, and sat and talked through many of the issues that we have out here in rural Texas. And of course, one of those are improved roadways. And he spent lots of time with us, gave us great advice, and made time for us that day. So we want to thank him for that as well. Now a little bit about Senator Ted Cruz. Folks, long before the rest of America discovered Ted Cruz, we all knew him well. A real Texan. Devoted to the Constitution, conservative values, and liberty. Ted is known as a leader for these principles in Washington. But before that, he was fighting for our God-given rights and freedom as Texas Solicitor General. By the way, he was the first Hispanic to hold that job. He fought hard for conservative principles, arguing 9 cases on behalf of Texas in front of the Supreme Court of the United States. Ted believes in limited government and individual liberty because he knew from childhood that those are the things that make America the shining city on the hill. His father escaped political persecution in Cuba and raised a son who became a U.S. Senator. Only in America, folks. Since he was elected in 2012, Ted has been fighting hard for us in Washington. Now, many of you know the mainstream media makes it seem he's fighting too hard at times. Really? But we here in Texas know that you never compromise on principles. Ted has written 9 bills that became law. 5 of those were last year alone, because we now have a Republican in the White House who will sign them. Yeah. Repeal the Obamacare individual mandate, and 1, you no longer have to buy health insurance because D.C. tells you you have to do it. Ted had a brilliant legal career before politics, so he knows firsthand the dangers of liberal activist judges. So he's been leading the charge to get record numbers of conservatives confirmed and put on the bench who will ensure that our courts are balanced, at least for a generation. We here in Texas care about our schools being free from Washington control, and Ted has secured the most significant school choice legislation in history. College savings plan, so parents can now use that money to put their kids in private or religious schools from kindergarten through high school. Yeah. And to support thousands of jobs for Texans, Ted made sure the funding for NASA was kept a priority this year. Ted and his wife Heidi and their adorable daughters Carolyn and Catherine live full-time in Houston. He never moved to D.C. Smart man that he is. In a landslide. Yeah. We'll still see him here in Texas whenever he can get out of that swamp. Now, it's my honor to introduce Senator Ted Cruz.
welcome. It is great to be back in San Angelo. Thank you for coming out today. Thank you for standing up for the great state of Texas. Thank you. You know, we're living in remarkable times. Anything is possible. As proof of that, I'll point to the fact that just a few weeks ago, I was playing one-on-one basketball with Jimmy Kimmel. Now, some of y'all may be wondering, how on earth did that come to pass? So I'll give you a little bit of the backstory. I am a die-hard Houston Rockets fan. And our Rockets came very, very close to winning the Western Conference Finals. They came just one game short. The next day, Jimmy Kimmel goes on national television and begins making fun of us. And he blames the Rocket loss on me. He said, because Ted was at Game 7, he cursed the Rockets. So I got kind of annoyed with that. And I figured, all right, I can either get ticked off or I can have some fun with it. So I pulled out my phone and I sent a tweet. I said, all right, big guy, you talk a good game. Let's settle this man-to-man hoops one-on-one. The loser gives $5,000 to the charity of the winner's choice. Well, next thing you know, Jimmy says yes. He gets on a plane, he flies to Houston. We played at TSU, Texas Southern University. Over 6,000 people came out to watch the game. As I said that day, never before have so many gathered to watch so little talent in basketball. The entire week before the game, Jimmy went on air every single night talking smack. He guaranteed victory. He said there was no way, it was physically impossible that he would lose. Well, the day of the game came, and I gotta tell you, it was ugly. There must have been 1,000 fouls in the course of that game. ESPN that night, they broadcast, if Dr. Naismith had seen what happened here today, he'd have invented a different sport. But at the end of the day, the final score was Cruz 11, Kimmel 9. And even better, we ended up raising over $80,000 for two wonderful Texas charities. So anything can happen. You look nationally. Nationally, we've got a Republican president. We have Republican majorities in both houses of Congress. And we are seeing incredible victories for the American people. We started last year. I think we had 4 big domestic priorities. Tax cuts, regulatory reform, Obamacare, and judges. My view was if we could deliver on those 4, it would have a long-lasting and a powerful impact on the state of Texas. And as we stand here a year and a half into it, it is remarkable just how many victories we've had. On tax cuts, in December, we passed the biggest tax cut of a generation. Cutting taxes on small businesses, on farmers, on ranchers, on job creators. Cutting taxes on working families. We doubled the child tax credit from $1,000 per child per year to $2,000 per child per year, which puts real money in the pockets of hardworking Texas families. You take something like the debt death tax, one of the cruelest and most unfair taxes that hits farmers and ranchers and small business owners and forces, when one generation passes away and passes it on to the next, far too many farms and ranches and businesses are sold to pay the taxes. Well, we doubled the exemption from the death tax, meaning 2/3 of the farms and ranches that would have been subject are now exempt from the death tax. And we doubled the standard deduction, which means starting next year, 90% of Americans will fill out your taxes on a postcard. Now, personally, I think that should be 100%, and we ought to adopt a simple flat tax and abolish the IRS. But 90% is a very good start. On regulatory reform, we've seen tremendous victories as just about every cabinet secretary, just about every cabinet agency has pulled back, has repealed job-killing regulations. Regulations that under President Obama were hammering the state of Texas, were hammering oil and gas, were hammering farmers and ranchers and ag. And the result of tax cuts and pulling back job-killing regulations is that the Texas economy is booming. We're today producing 33% more oil in Texas than we did in 2016. Nationally, unemployment is the lowest it's been in decades. African American unemployment is the lowest we've ever had in recorded history. Hispanic unemployment is the lowest ever recorded since we began keeping the data. Youth unemployment, a number of young people here today, youth unemployment ages 16 to 24 is the lowest it has been in 52 years. It's real simple. When you cut taxes, when you simplify the tax code, when you pull back job-killing regulations, small business prospers and the state of Texas does great. Third big priority, Obamacare. Clearly the biggest unfinished commitment of our Republican majorities. But even that, it's worth noting, we did manage to come together and repeal the Obamacare individual mandate. That's a big deal. I led the fight to get that done last year. Last fall, nobody thought we could get it done. We had maybe 6 or 7 senators supporting us in the fall. And then by December, we brought everyone together. We got all 52 Republicans on the same page, and we delivered on our promise and repealed the individual mandate. Now we need to finish the job and repeal the rest of that disastrous law. And fourth, judges. Judges have been an unmitigated success of the Trump presidency and of the Republican majority in the Senate. Yes. We have Justice Neil Gorsuch, and we're fixing to have Justice Brett Kavanaugh. If you happen to see Chuck Schumer running around on the Senate floor with his hair on fire, that would be why. But not only that, we we've confirmed principled constitutionalists up and down the federal judiciary. Last year, the Senate confirmed more federal Court of Appeals judges than any time in history in the first year of a president's term. For all of us who care about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, who care about free speech and religious liberty, who care about the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms, who care about the 10th Amendment and the limitations on the powers of the federal government.
Amen.
It is the courts that are at the crossroads between either undermining those rights or upholding those rights. And with the constitutionalists we have confirmed in the last 2 years, that represents an incredible victory for defending the constitutional rights of 28 million Texans. That's right. So we're in an election season now. We're 68 days out from the election. And we got a fight on our hands. The extreme left, they're angry. They're energized. A few minutes ago they were dancing outside the window. And they're unified by their hatred for the president. Now I gotta tell you, that's dangerous. It's resulting in a couple of things. One of the things it's resulting in is tens of millions of dollars flooding into the state of Texas from liberals all over the country. But another thing it's going to result in is in December, we're going to see record-shattering Democratic turnout. Now here's the good news. This is Texas. And in Texas, there are a whole lot more conservatives than there are liberals. That means politically, our task is simple. What we need to do, this election comes down to one word politically: turnout. Turnout, turnout, turnout.
Amen.
If we turn out freedom-loving conservatives, we will have a fantastic election in November. The danger isn't that a bunch of Texas conservatives end up voting Democrat. I don't think that's likely to happen. Our danger is too many of us stay home.
That's right.
Our danger is complacency.
Yes.
That the economy's doing well, people are feeling good, they're focused on their jobs and their family and their kids and the ball game, and they just don't make it to the polls. The other side is going to show up. They're angry, they're ticked. That means for all of us, we got to stand up for what we believe. You know, what is it we believe in as Texans? We believe in low taxes, low regulations, lots and lots of jobs, higher wages, more and more opportunity. We believe in securing the border and keeping our communities safe. We believe in defending the Constitution and defending the Bill of Rights. And if we turn out freedom-loving Texans to stand up and defend our values, we are going to keep the great state of Texas bright, bright red. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you like. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Senator. My name is Grace Shelton, and I'm a junior at Central High School.
Terrific.
Like you, I'm a strict constitutionalist and believe in the conservative beliefs of our founding fathers. It seems your adversary has found appeal amongst the younger generations by supporting socialist ideals.
Yes.
My question to you, Senator, is what are you and the Republican Party doing to close the gap between conservatives and the younger generation?
Thank you for your question. Thank you for being here, and thank you for speaking out. Let me say your question is incredibly important. If you look at young people, one of the most troubling statistics nationally is about 50% of young people think socialism is a good idea. Look, for For the rest of us, that is an incredible indictment of everybody else. Because we haven't done our job. Because young people should know, as you know, that socialism has been a manifest failure everywhere on earth that it's been implemented. You want to see socialism? Go take a look at Venezuela. Venezuela used to be a wealthy, prosperous country, one of the richest countries in Latin America. They have abundant oil resources. And then Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro came in and jammed socialism down their throat. And that economy, that country is in free fall. You have people literally eating out of the trash cans. If you care about social justice, if you care about poverty, then you should be passionate about the American free enterprise system, because the American free enterprise system has been the greatest enemy to poverty the world has ever seen. So let's talk about how we reach young people and energize people. I want to start by saying, all right, everyone who is 30 or under, raise your hand. All right, so take a look around. I mean, we've got young people who are here who are standing up and roaring. You know, according to the mainstream media, Republicans are all old, fat, white, bald guys. And if anyone's offended at that, I didn't mean to be saying that. But if we look at young people, let me tell you, I think the key to young people is actually your voice, and your voice, and your voice, and your voice. It's speaking out to your friends, it's speaking out to your peers, and I'd say two things. Number one, defend liberty. Liberty is contagious. Liberty is powerful. When your classmates, when you have young people who are saying, look, the lefty argument is real simple. We'll give you free stuff. Now, who doesn't like free stuff? Free stuff, free stuff, free stuff. But you know, Margaret Thatcher put it wonderfully. She said the problem with socialism is eventually you run out of other people's money.
Amen.
And if you look at liberty, a simple question to ask your classmates is, why on earth would you want your life being governed by unelected bureaucrats in Washington? Why would you want, we want you to be free. We want you to be free to make decisions about your life, your future, your dreams, what to do with your money that you make through working, what to do with your kids and how you raise your family, what to do with your future, your health care, who your doctor is. All of this is about who's in charge. The Democrats, they want Washington in charge. They want government in charge. And what we're fighting for is for you to be in charge, and that is a powerful, powerful message. Say a second point for young people. Have fun. You know, too many Republican politicians act like they got a stick inserted somewhere it don't belong. Like, lighten up, crack a joke, just laugh at yourself. I remember some weeks back, I was driving on my phone on Twitter, driving down the road. I wasn't driving, I was in the passenger seat.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw one person who had a Twitter handle, Ted Cruz ate my son. And I was really, really tempted to tweet, he was delicious. Just have fun, don't take yourself so daggone seriously. And that's a powerful thing. Let me make a final point for young people. We're seeing the left right now, they're filled with rage. They're filled with anger and hatred. You see them cursing and full of fury. Now that's a sad thing for our country. That's not good for America to have that kind of division, that kind of polarization, that kind of hatred. But it also presents an opportunity for us. We shouldn't respond in kind. Don't respond with that same sort of attitude, but we should be happy warriors. We should reflect joy because you know what? Our ideas work. You might be pissed off too if you were trying to sell a failed bunch of ideas that doesn't work.
High school junior here at Central High School. With the recent passing of John McCain, we know that he was kind of an adversary with the Trump administration, but how do you view his passing and more specifically his positions while you were serving with him in the Senate?
Well, John McCain's passing is a sad day. He was an extraordinary man. He was someone who spent virtually his entire life in public service. He was born into a storied Navy family. His father and his grandfather were both admirals. He went and fought in Vietnam, and as you know, he was shot down. And he spent 5.5 years in a POW camp in Hanoi Hilton, being viciously tortured. The most incredible thing I've always found about John McCain is he was offered early release. Because of who his dad was, an admiral, they said, we'll let you go early. And John turned him down. He said, no, I'm not going to leave until my men leave. Now, I got to say, look, I think every one of us, we would hope if we were in that circumstance, we'd say the same thing. That's clearly the right thing to do. But I will be willing to bet very few of us have ever faced that kind of choice. And to have the character, to have the integrity, to have the courage to say, no, I won't leave, and to go back to abusing and torturing and knowing what you were facing, it is incredible. I was blessed to serve 6 years with him in the Senate. He could be fiery. He could be volcanic. The phrase curses like a sailor applied to John. He could curse you out up and down and freeway sideways. There were a number of issues John and I disagreed on. But I'll tell you, we became friends. And we actually traveled abroad a couple of times together. And one of the things that was truly incredible to see is to see John McCain when he encountered active duty military. And the love that soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines had for him. I mean, they would stop, they'd have tears in their eyes. And the love that he had for them, it was real, it was genuine, it was passionate. And it was incredible. And he was a national hero who fought for our country. And for all of us, our prayers and our thoughts are with Cindy, with his family, with his kids, with his grandkids. And we are grateful for a life of service defending this great nation.
Good afternoon, Senator. My name is Eric Curtis Austin. I'm a student veteran here at Angelo State University. So, like most of us here, I love this country very much. So much so that I signed up for the military and I just retired. My friend here, Angel, is also retired, Air Force as well. But my question to you is, I worked hard to get where I was at and to where I'm standing here in front of you. Unfortunately, I'm criticized by some peers of my fellow classmates because I'm Hispanic and I'm Republican. And they automatically assume, well, why? Why are you a Republican? Why aren't you supporting DACA? Why aren't you doing this and that? When my parents came to this country, they did it the right way. Right. Yeah. It took them a long time. I had the best future that I could possibly get, and I paid them by serving this country that they so hard work for. So my question to you is, Senator, with this DACA thing, I'm not sure if it's still up in the air kind of thing. I want to know is what's your approach and stance on it, as being a Latino Republican.
Yeah. So it's a great question. I'll get it directly to it. Let me first of all say thank you for your service. And let me ask every veteran who is here, please raise your hand so that all of us can thank all of you. We are grateful and we love you. Now thank you for your question. You're right that so you're in school, you're Hispanic, and you're conservative. Now, according to the media, so by the way, everyone can say you saw a ghost, and let me tell you something. You're also not alone. One of the things the national media does not understand about the Hispanic community is that our community is a conservative community. The values that resonate in the Hispanic community: faith, family, patriotism. A lot of people don't know Hispanics have the highest rate of military enlistment of any demographic in this country. ask you something. When is the last time you saw an Hispanic panhandler?
Nope.
I don't think I ever have. In the Hispanic community, it would be shameful to be out there begging on the streets. Now, if you want work done, you'll see men and women lining up to work their fingers to the bone to provide for their kids. Now, every one of those values are conservative values. Now, what the mainstream media says is that the way you get Hispanic votes in Texas is you gallop to the left. You embrace amnesty, you embrace open borders, you embrace socialism. And that's just not true. That's what Beto O'Rourke is doing. He's following the media play to run crazy to the left. But I'll point out to you as a point of encouragement, in 2012, when I first ran for the Senate.
When I first voted for you, too.
Well, thank you. So in that election, I got 40% of the Hispanic vote in the state of Texas. At the same time that Mitt Romney was getting 27% of the Hispanic vote nationwide. And then, as now, and every day in between, I ran and am categorically opposed to amnesty, in favor of building a wall, and support securing the border. Media doesn't understand is the Hispanic community is very directly impacted by illegal immigration.
Yes, we are.
This is not theoretical and abstract. If you have sanctuary cities that are letting violent, criminal, illegal aliens go, where do you think they go move into? What neighborhoods do you think they're moving into? They're moving into predominantly Hispanic neighborhoods. They're moving right down the street from Hispanics who are American citizens who are dealing suddenly with MS-13 and violent criminals coming in. You want to talk about who's paying the price for illegal immigration? The Hispanic community pays it in a very real way. They're also dealing with, who gets left out of this debate all the time, are legal immigrants. People like your parents, people like my dad, who followed the rules, who waited in line, who came here seeking the American dream. And it is often the legal immigrants who face the very direct job competitions. They're the ones who are sometimes losing their job to illegal immigration, who's undercutting them on wages and driving their wages down. So, my view in terms of how we address immigration, I've summed up my views on immigration many times in 4 words. Legal, good. Illegal, bad. Which I think the vast majority of Texans agree with. That when it comes to illegal immigration, we need to do everything necessary to secure the border. That means build the wall. But that's not it. That also means we need to use technology. We need to use infrared. We need to use fixed wing and rotary wing aircraft. And we need boots on the ground. We need to triple the U.S. Border Patrol. All of that while we continue to welcome, to celebrate legal immigrants, those who come here and stand in line and follow the rules and come here. Ronald Reagan referred to legal immigrants as Americans by choice. I think that's the balance that Texans believe in. I think that's the right approach. And so the case we can make, you look at where the Democratic Party has gone on immigration. They are so extreme, they're so radical, that I don't think it reflects the Hispanic community in Texas. I don't think it reflects voters in Texas. I'll give you a common sense example. And when people are pushing back on you, take something like case law. So I am the author of case law in the Senate. Case law. Case law, as you know, is named for Kate Steinle, a beautiful young woman, 28 years old in California. She was on a pier with her dad, and she was shot and killed by a repeat felon illegal alien who had been in and out of jail over and over again, had multiple felony convictions, had been deported over and over again, but the revolving door, they kept letting them out, letting them out, letting them out into the sanctuary city, and they let them out. Case law provides that for any aggravated felon who repeatedly enters the country illegally, they face a mandatory minimum prison sentence. If case law had been on the books, Kate Steinle would still be alive because her murderer would have been in a federal prison instead of on that pier that night. Common sense legislation that 70, 80, 90% of Texans agree with. Republicans agree with that, independents agree with that, libertarians agree with that, even Texas Democrats agree with that. So why hasn't it passed? Because the Washington Democrats, the elected Democrats, have gotten so extreme they're filibustering it and blocking it. That is an agenda that's out of step with the people of Texas. And so I think we need to embrace common sense positions, secure the border, protect our community, and welcome and streamline and improve legal immigration. I think that's a balance that is very appealing.
Mr. Cruz, I'm a student at Central High School, graduating senior.
By the way, the meeting of the Yearbook Club will be shortly after.
As a student, one of our main concerns is, of course, the growth of mass shootings and school safety.
Yes.
And a lot of people on the far left believe that repealing is the only answer to the solution.
Yep.
Well, we know as Republicans that that's never the solution, and that more security and more rights to our citizens is always the best way. How can the Republicans, especially in the Senate and Congress today, fight against the growth of these angry liberals against our gun rights?
Yeah. Look, it's a great question. It's an important question. And it's also a question on people's minds. I mean, we have school starting last week. We have students, all the students that are starting school, all the parents and grandparents who have kids and grandkids. I'm going to get to the specifics of your question, but let me give some general observations first. Let me first of all say there's something deeply messed up going on. That the shootings we're having in schools, look, when you and I were kids, this wasn't a thing. This didn't happen. I mean, maybe you had to worry about a guy giving you a black eye or a bloody nose. But you didn't worry about some lunatic coming in trying to kill everybody. I mean, it wasn't happening. And there are a lot of reasons that are driving this that are completely separate from any law in Washington. There are reasons like removing God from the public square. Of our shared moral foundations, a weakening of the ties of community and the church and the family, and so you have young people who are alone and alienated and angry, and a lot of those problems, they're deep societal problems we're struggling with that we need to address, and there's going to be no piece of legislation that's going to magically fix them, but it's a responsibility for us as citizens, as fathers, as mothers, it's a responsibility for the church to try to rebuild and restore that foundation and that fabric of who we are. All that being said, there's a lot we can do to make schools safer. Santa Fe High School. Santa Fe High School is about a half hour from my house. I was at home that Friday morning when the school shooting happened, about 7:30 in the morning. So I just got in the truck and headed down there. And I spent the entire day at the school. I spent the entire day with the students, with the parents, with the teachers, with the first responders. I went to the hospital that afternoon. Young man who'd been shot in the hip and through the elbow. He'd just come out of surgery. There were probably a dozen other students in his hospital room there. He had family there. And I was there with the governor, and look, when you're with people after a tragedy, you don't come in and give a political speech. That's not the right approach. You just go and listen. You just go love on them, and you listen to whatever they want to say. And so we're there, and the governor and I both asked all the students, we said, what's the answer to this? What do we do about this? Every single student in that hospital room said, gun control's not the answer. What they said is, you know what, if you take away our guns, we're not going to be any safer. It just means the murderers and killers are the only ones with guns. answer, the number one answer the students gave is the biggest thing that we need to do is have more armed police officers on our school campuses to keep students safe. The number one thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. You know, one of those Santa Fe students who was standing in that room, he was in the classroom adjoining where the shooting happened. The shooting happened back in the art annex. He was in the classroom next door. He said, you know what? My teacher was a former Marine. If he had been armed, he could have stopped that before a single person was killed.
Yep.
I think an absolutely common sense step is to allow teachers who are trained, who are capable, who know how to handle a firearm, to keep and bear arms and help keep schools safe. Now, this is an issue the media loves to caricature. They love to ridicule. And they paint an image of little old Mrs. Smith, at age 80, the librarian with a walker. And they paint an image of putting a .44 Magnum in her hand. Now, by the way, I used that analogy in East Texas. And out in the back of the room was a Mrs. Smith in a walker who said, I'll take it, I'll get what I aim at. So this is Texas. But nobody's talking about forcing a teacher who doesn't feel comfortable to carry a firearm. There are an awful lot of teachers who are former military, who are former law enforcement, who are trained, who are perfectly capable to handle a firearm. And that's one of the ways to help make schools safer. Beyond that, we can do a lot on physical infrastructure. For example, shrinking the number of entrances to a school. You know, if you think about it, you go to a bank, you go to a courthouse, you go to a lot of businesses. They typically have one or maybe two entrances. They don't have 10 or 20 or 30 or 40. You know, you look at the Santa Fe shooter, he went in through a back entrance of the art annex. If you have one or two entrances, you bring any potential assailant through that entrance where law enforcement is right there and can stop them before they get to the kids. There's more we can do in terms of schools where it's appropriate. On the local level, making that decision to put metal detectors in, that's another step that can be done. And another thing is hardening the doors so that they're bulletproof. In both Santa Fe and Parkland, you had students that were holding the door shut, trying to stop the shooter from getting in. And in both instances, the shooter stepped back and fired through the door, and they were flimsy little doors, and killed a student inside the classroom. We need to have doors in the classroom that you can close, that you can lock, that you can't shoot bullets through, so that you have a safe haven for the students if, God forbid, there is a shooting. The point is, there's a lot you can do. But the answer the Democrats and the media always want is go after the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens. That's wrong, and it doesn't work. Instead, target the bad guys and come down on the bad guys like a ton of bricks. All right, let's do 3 more questions. Yeah.
Stand up here, sorry. You mentioned being very constitutionalist and being very big into protecting the Bill of Rights and all that.
Yes.
And I can see that you are very principled on specifically the Second Amendment and the 10th Amendment. My question is, why do you not apply the same standard to the 4th and 8th? Specifically the 4th, with our mass amounts of drone strikes in the Middle East that killed untold amounts of civilians. And the 8th, in that we do torture many people in places like Guantanamo Bay. Why is the Second Amendment and 10th Amendment important, but not the 4th and 8th?
Okay, so that's a great question, and let's address it direct specifics. I believe in every amendment to the Constitution. I think every word and every clause of the Constitution. So, you referenced the 4th Amendment with regard to drone strikes over in Pakistan or Afghanistan or overseas, and you said, why doesn't the 4th Amendment prohibit that? So the reason is the 4th Amendment does not apply outside of the U.S. to non-U.S. citizens. What the 4th Amendment applies, it protects us. And it protects in particular the right of Americans to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. The Fourth Amendment has zero applicability. It does, the Bill of Rights doesn't apply. By the way, none of the Bill of Rights applies to a terrorist in Pakistan.
Amen.
Pressed hard, so there are some in the Senate who argue, let's take a drone strike, that you ought to be able to strike a U.S. citizen who they think is a terrorist on U.S. soil. I think you clearly cannot do that. And so in the Senate, I pressed for protections to protect the constitutional rights of U.S. citizens on U.S. soil. Now, there are actually instances where you can even do a drone strike if there's a clear and imminent danger. If you think about it, if you have, let's use an easier example, say a bank robber that has a bunch of hostages. You got a bank robber with a bunch of hostages, the SWAT can take him out and shoot him right there. So law enforcement has the authority to use lethal force, but you can't do it just on suspicion of being a terrorist. So on the Fourth Amendment, it applies here, it doesn't apply there. On the Eighth Amendment, so the Eighth Amendment also doesn't apply overseas, but let me address your broader point. So you said that prisoners are being tortured at Guantanamo. If that were right, I would agree with you, but as a factual matter, that's not accurate. So look, torture is wrong. Torture is wrong. We should not be torturing people at Guantanamo. The Guantanamo facilities, if you look at them, they are some of the nicest detention facilities in the world. Now they're secure because the people being held there are bad actors. They're terrorists who want to murder Americans. And I'll tell you, one of the saddest things is you look at the stats of the Guantanamo terrorists that our soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines risked their lives to capture, who were sent to Vietnam, who were released under the Obama administration, and I don't have the current numbers, but it's roughly 2/3 of them went back to waging war and trying to kill Americans again.
Yes.
And I don't know how you go and ask a soldier, okay, now go catch someone we just let go. And so you're right, we should not be torturing anybody as a matter of policy, and actually in the Senate, we voted to prohibit torture. But we should absolutely interrogate people, and we should respect their rights.
Yes.
So, thank you.
I'm just really concerned, there is a trend going on social media and all that they're trying to squish the conservative
Yes.
voice.
Yes.
They are doing all that they can to set the algorithms, and I know that they've been speaking, they've got the head of Twitter and Google and Facebook. I'm just concerned that the closer it gets to the election, all we're going to get to hear is the liberal wackiness and not be represented.
Listen, it is a huge problem. I am concerned by that as well. If you look at the power that has been drawn into Silicon Valley and the censorship, they've got a level of power that William Randolph Hearst, the famed publisher, at the height of yellow journalism could never have imagined. A power to censor Americans. Roughly 70% of Americans get their political news from social media. And they have the ability, number one, to shadow ban someone. If they decide they don't like what you're saying, you can tweet it or post it, and it just floats out in the ether. Nobody sees it. And it's completely invisible. You don't know that nobody sees it. That's really what's most dangerous about it. It's not even transparent. Look, if you write a letter to the editor of the newspaper and they don't publish it, you know they don't publish it. If social media just disappears you don't even know what's happening. Likewise, if they decide their views they want to promote, they can just have everything that comes into your feed be the view they want you to see. That power is dangerous, and they're all wildly and wickedly left-wing. Now, you may have seen a couple of months ago, Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, testified in the Senate. And I took the opportunity to question him in a way that wasn't gentle. I don't think it would have run afoul of this young man's Eighth Amendment concerns, but it was vigorous. The big question that I pressed him on several things. For example, Facebook censoring people like Diamond and Silk, deciding that their content was dangerous. Facebook or Twitter refusing to allow Marsha Blackburn to launch her campaign because she described Planned Parenthood selling the body parts of unborn children. And they, which they do, and they decided that was offensive to their content. So I asked Mrs. Zuckerberg, tell me, has Facebook ever banned any Democratic politician in their campaign video? Oh, I don't know. Nobody knows. He wouldn't answer. No one would answer. But the question I pressed the most on is I said, does Facebook consider itself a neutral public forum? The reason is there's a lot we can do. Right now, Facebook and Twitter and social media, they have a special immunity from liability under what's called the Communications Decency Act that Congress passed years ago, long before I was there. And the reason they're immune from liability, the theory behind it, was that they're neutral public forums. And they just let anyone post, so you shouldn't be able to sue them for what someone posts, if it's not them speaking, it's the other person. Well, if Facebook instead, or any of these others, decide that they're going to be First Amendment speakers, they're going to take political positions, they have a right to do that. But they don't deserve any special immunity from liability. They ought to be liable for what they say, just like everybody else. And I think beyond that, the power that is being drawn into Silicon Valley, by any measure, these giant tech companies, they are bigger and more powerful than Standard Oil was when it was broken up under the antitrust laws. They're bigger and more powerful than AT&T was when it was broken up under the antitrust laws. And if you have a monopoly abusing its power, then federal law enforcement needs to stop the monopoly from abusing its power. All right, last question. Yes, sir.
I do a bit of borrowing from banks and stuff, and DoddFrank was enacted.
Yes.
And I understand about a third of the regulations never really went into place. We repealed a bunch of Dodd-Franks, but I was talking to several bankers in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And they've said they've received virtually no memos whatsoever on what we've repealed.
Right.
So when would we expect to see some of that actually going into place?
Yeah.
Community banks might know what they can and can't do.
Okay, so that's a very, very good question. Let me take it on a couple levels. So it's a question about Dodd-Frank and the damage it's done to community banks, and some of the regulations have been repealed, but when and how are community banks going to learn that? I think in terms of communicating what's being repealed, that should be communicated better. My office is going to work to try to get that communicated better from the CFPB, because they have not done a great job on that. But let's step back. Let's talk about Dodd-Frank generally, and then let's talk specifically about how it's operating. So Dodd-Frank, I've said many times, talk about a bill that you don't need to read any further than the title to know nothing good can come of it. You know, Dodd-Frank is actually a perfect example of the Washington swamp. So you remember how Dodd-Frank was sold to the American people? It was sold to the American people as stopping too big to fail, stopping the giant banks from being too big to fail. Now, how's that worked out? Every one of the big banks is bigger. They've grown their market power. The big banks have done great on it. Who's been hammered under Dodd-Frank? The community banks, the small financial institutions, the places here in San Angelo that are loaning to small businesses, that are loaning to families, that are getting hammered. And the point I make all the time is, that was not an unintended side effect. That wasn't, oops, we didn't think about it. The lobbyists for the giant banks were sitting in the Democratic senators' offices when they were writing that bill. And one thing to understand, this goes back to the socialism question earlier. Look, big business is often fine with big government. They often get into bed with big government. And so, if you look at Dodd-Frank, it puts crushing regulations on everyone. If you're a gigantic bank, you know what? You hire a few more lawyers and accountants and you absorb the cost. But if you're a little community bank, that's the difference between staying in business and being driven out of business. And we have seen community banks going out of business at record pace. So what do I think we should do with Dodd-Frank? I think we should repeal every word of it.
Yes.
I've introduced legislation to repeal Dodd-Frank in its entirety. I'm fighting for that to be passed. And what we have passed is a couple of things. We passed a reform bill that pulls back Dodd-Frank. It pulls back some of the worst excesses That's a step in the right direction. Even some Democrats were willing to allow that to go forward. We've also had the president put Mick Mulvaney in charge of the CFPB, which drove liberals crazy. And what Mick has done is stopped many of the worst abuses from the CFPB. The CFPB was being driven by a very liberal Democratic politician. He's running for governor in Ohio right now, who used it to demagogue and to hammer and crush small businesses and small banks. I think under President Trump that has stopped substantially, but you're right, they haven't gotten the guidance out as well as they should. They need to do a better job of that, but I'm going to continue pushing to repeal it altogether. All right, let me give some final closing thoughts on this race. You know, typically in a general election, Democrats in Texas, they at least pretend to run to the middle. They pretend to be moderates. That is not happening in this race. My opponent, Congressman Beto O'Rourke, is running hard left, like Bernie Sanders. Let me give you specifics. On taxes, he voted against the tax cut, and he wants to raise your taxes. For anyone here who works in the energy business, who works in oil and gas, he has voted repeatedly in favor of a carbon tax. And he has voted in support of a $10 a barrel tax on oil. You would have to be nuts if you work in the energy sector to vote for Beto O'Rourke. On regulation, he wants to bring back the Obama-era regulations that hammered Texas, that hammered oil and gas, that hammered farmers and ranchers and ag. For example, he strongly supports the Obama-Paris climate deal, which hammered Texas, would have taken thousands of jobs away from Texas. I'll tell you, I urged President Trump to pull out of that deal because it was bad for Texas and bad for America, and the president did the right thing and he pulled us out of the deal. On health care, Beto supports Obamacare and wants to expand it to full-on socialized medicine, putting the federal government in charge of your health care and your doctor. On the Second Amendment, Beto has tweeted out how proud he is that he's got an F rating from the NRA. Not a D-, not a D, an F. And he's campaigning, he's saying that's why you should vote for him. He's got an F. You know what I did? I retweeted him. Look, elections are about choices. And if you want a big government, gun-grabbing liberal, well, the Democrats are giving you one. On Israel, he has the most anti-Israel record of any Democratic Senate nominee in the country. Let me give you specifics. In 2014, when Hamas was raining rockets down on Israel, Beto O'Rourke was one of eight members of the House to vote against funding Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system. Virtually every Republican voted yes. Virtually every Democrat voted yes. Nancy Pelosi voted yes. Maxine Waters voted yes. But Beto O'Rourke voted no. He wouldn't stand with Israel on that vote. Wow. On immigration, there is no race in the country with a starker divide on immigration race here in Texas. On my part, I'm incredibly honored to have received the formal endorsement of the National Border Patrol Council, the union of the men and women of the Border Patrol. Congressman O'Rourke opposes a wall. In fact, he says we have too many walls and fences on the border already. We need to tear them all down. Tear down the walls and fences we have on the border right now. He supports sanctuary cities, and he has said he is, quote, open to, and these are his words, open to abolishing ICE, abolishing the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency. When he was pressed on that, he doubled down and said, well, maybe we shouldn't just abolish ICE, maybe we should abolish the entire Department of Homeland Security. Look, those are radical and reckless views. Those don't reflect the views of Texans. Not only that, he is the only Democratic Senate nominee in the country to come out explicitly for impeaching President Trump. He has said he would vote yes to impeach Donald Trump today, right now.
What did you do, Senator?
Facts don't matter. I'm sorry, when you're talking about liberals, don't bring these facts into it. That's a very scary thing. We're busy emoting. We're emoting, so don't logic, reason, no. We can't have any of that. Emotions are what drive us. You know, if you look the past couple of weeks, a disagreement I've had with Beto O'Rourke, I think it actually sums up a lot of this race. He has come out strongly in support of NFL players protesting the national anthem. He was asked at a town hall meeting he was doing. Someone stood up and said, I'm a veteran, my family has a lot of veterans, and they said, look, I'm offended when I see wealthy NFL players who refuse to stand for the flag, who drop to one knee, and my question to you is, do you think it's disrespectful? It's disrespectful to veterans, to active duty military, to law enforcement. Do you think it's disrespectful when they protest the flag and the national anthem? Well, Beto's response, he said, no, I don't think it's disrespectful. And he went on to say, I can't think of anything more American than taking a knee and protesting during the national anthem.
Stand up!
I gotta say, I can think of a lot of things more American, starting with the millions of soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines who fought and bled and died for the flag and the freedom of our country. Now, when he says this, there was a video, you can watch the video, it went viral online. And Hollywood went crazy. Hollywood celebrities are in love with Beto. Ellen DeGeneres retweeted him. In fact, next week he's going on Ellen's show. But you know what? That's not Texas. Listen, in Texas, we respect the flag. We stand for the anthem with a flag, with a hand over our heart, and in uniform we salute. We honor our veterans and we support the men and women of law enforcement. Wants to protest, they got a First Amendment right to protest, but you can protest without disrespecting the flag and without disrespecting our veterans. Despite the fact that Congressman O'Rourke is running hard left, he is the #1 Democratic fundraiser in the country. And he is outraising our campaign substantially. So our campaign last quarter, we raised $4.6 million. That's a lot of money. That's more than any other Republican senator. We raised $4.6 million. The same quarter, his campaign raised $10.4 million. That is dangerous. So I want to ask every one of you here to do 4 things. Number 1, speak out. Use your voice. Speak out as to why freedom matters. Why it matters that we have low taxes and low regulations and lots of jobs. Why it matters that we secure the borders and stop releasing violent, criminal, illegal aliens. Why it matters that we protect the Second Amendment rights of Texans. Why it matters that we protect religious liberty. Why it matters that we protect who we are. For young people, use social media. Speak out as to why freedom matters to you. That is powerful. Speak out, number 1. Number 2, contribute. I want to ask everyone, when you get home tonight, go to our website, tedcruz.org. Tedcruz.org. Ted Cruz.
TedCruz.org.
There you go. And make a contribution. We're getting outraised 2-to-1. And more than 2-to-1, actually. And every penny we raise, and in fact, many of you here brought your checkbooks. You can write a check right here now. Who on the campaign can receive checks? All right, we got Emily, we got Wade. Brian is somewhere. Brian is hiding. Okay, Wade and Emily can receive checks, and somewhere Brian is hiding, but he can receive checks too. So, every single dollar that we raise will go to informing, will go to mobilizing, will go into turning out common sense conservative voters in Texas. And you know what? We know the mainstream media is not going to do that for us. Every couple of days there's another glowing profile of Beto O'Rourke in the media. Their favorite adjective for him is Kennedy-esque. Usually with his hair blowing in the wind. Now mind you, these glowing profiles don't mention any of his record. They don't mention any of his radical policy positions. They don't talk about abolishing ICE. They don't talk about impeaching the president. They just say, look at his hair. Apparently we're electing a clump of hair. And so, to get the records out, to get the substance out, it's going to take our getting the message directly to Texans, and every penny you contribute will go to that. Number 3, volunteer. Volunteer. Every week we have thousands of Texans across the state who are knocking on doors. It is powerful when you look in the eyes of your neighbors and you say, this election matters. It matters to me. It matters to my family. That's powerful. If you'd rather stay out of the hot sun, you can download an app on your phone from our website, and you can make phone calls from your living room couch. It'll connect you directly with Texas voters who we need to turn out. And finally, number 4, vote. Come out and vote and bring your friends, bring your family, bring your neighbors, bring your loved ones, bring your co-workers. Look, the hard left, they're energized and angry. They're going to show up. They're counting on most Texans staying home. That's their victory plan. But I'll tell you this, we are going to win this election. There are 50 states, but there's only one Texas. Is not going to defend itself. But if we stand up and stand together to defend the God-given rights that we have as Texans, we are going to keep the state of Texas as the greatest state in the greatest nation in the history of the world.
Can we make sure that the board gets online? I don't know.